All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about some good stuff. Let's talk about Aquaman.
Oh.
Maybe it's not good stuff. Sorry, that was a mistake. Anyway, Aquaman and the
okay,
Lost
so
Kingdom.
All right.
we finally have the
Witness
answer
why you
for how
failed.
much Amber Heard is actually in this movie, and it is
Oh,
11 lines of
She's
dialogue.
in there a lot, right?
She's in there for 15 to 20 minutes with only
Yeah.
11 lines of dialogue, and then she gets fucking yeeted out of the movie early on, and then she's gone for the majority of it just to show up at the end and accomplish absolutely nothing. So I guess that's the compromise, really. I still think she should have been recast, or just, you know.
They really, they definitely.
I mean, it wasn't an easy way out of it. I don't know. What do you think?
No, they definitely used. There was definitely a rewrite or something in the middle there because there was. It just seemed so random. Out of nowhere, she just gets like she's just in a hospital bed, and they're just like, "Well, see you later."
Yeah.
Like it just go off, and do their best.
She was definitely
do a
supposed to
rewrite.
have a.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? It's almost like you can't make a fucking comic book movie these days without having to do reshoots and rewrites and take 6 months longer and spend another $150 million on bullshit.
Well, let me ask a question. So, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, this is the last movie from the previous regime, right?
Mm-hmm. The end of the DCEU. Yeah. We can finally get past that shit. Some people never got past that.
Right.
Some people never got past Batman versus Superman.
So, I mean,
the audience score is very sketchy too.
To tell you the truth, so I saw it yesterday, and this could be a little prisoner of the moment because of how bad I felt Rebel Moon was. I did not utterly hate Lost Kingdom. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's a great movie, fantastic. But like, I wasn't not entertained by it. It wasn't not enjoyable for the most part. Like the Amber Heard stuff didn't really bother me. I don't know if it's 78. Like I'd probably put it lower than that. Like I know that's a weighted score, but like a C+ movie.
Well, see, you're not the only one though. Yeah. A lot of people, if you look online, a lot of people are saying that about Aquaman, Lost Kingdom. They're saying it's like it's a good movie. It's not like amazing, obviously, and it's not fucking awfully terrible, but it's kind of like average, or maybe slightly above.
It's above mid. I would say it's like slightly above mid. And to tell you the truth, if this would have came out at a different time with less of the Amber Heard like taint to it and all this stuff, I think it would have been successful. It's not. Yeah, I mean, actually, I will say this.
They've got a baby in it, you know. Like
I will say this,
family.
And Will, I don't since you seem to be the one who's up on it the most besides me. There's actually a really strong message about fatherhood in this, which is super rare by modern standards, and brotherhood as well being important. And those two things caught me extremely off guard. I was like, whoa,
it's very rare these days, isn't it, to see a film come out that actually has a positive thing to say about family values.
Yeah.
Especially
that's what people are saying about Pandora.
Promoting having children. It's
I
mean, that alone, it's worth an extra couple of points.
I mean, it still looks like the CGI mess. Don't get me wrong. It still has that same problem that all of the DC movies had up to this point. But at least it like so I heard somebody in within this said it wasn't woke. I can agree with that. It was not woke. The wokest thing they had was a slight environmental message, but that was going to be in an Aquaman movie no matter what.
I hate that. I have a question then. Is it only a slight message? Because the way Jason Momoa was going on and on about it leading up to this, he made it seem like that was the point of the film, that he was going all in on the environment.
I mean, it is the threat, isn't it?
It's the threat, but it's almost so like over the top, unrealistic of a version of environmental issues that it's easy to kind of ignore it. They only say at one point, one line of like, good thing we started heating up the planet. Good thing for global warming, and then it's like, and somebody's like, it's not a good thing. That's like the wokest line. Then they start like
the first one had an environmental message as well, but it was very subtle. So I was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't like the first movie, but at least the messaging in it is also environmentalist and it's subtle, which I appreciate. You know,
which makes kind of baked into the character, isn't it? Aquaman's always had that kind of.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to hate that. I hate that term woke now because like everyone's labeling everything woke, and everything isn't woke.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I can see that. The only problem is that it is a word that they took, right? And they took it from 100 years ago when it was first used. And when it actually meant, actually being aware of actual oppression, stay woke, brother, and all that. And they've taken it and completely bastardized, warped it to the point where now, if you actually need a definition of wokeness, almost no one can come up with it. The one I use is basically that it is to have been convinced that the world is an awful and in an unequal place, despite all evidence being to the contrary. And
that one pretty much sums it up. That guy right there sums it up right there.
He says, I'm not going to pretend this movie is anything new or great, but it does occasionally manage to be fun and subversive enough to act as a solid sequel and a fitting send-off to an extended superhero universe that never found its footing.
Yep.
That's fair.
Pretty accurate.
Have you noticed that the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is quite high? It's like pushing towards 80%, but on
it's always high because they started
IMDb, it's nowhere near.
You got to understand, Rotten Tomatoes for the last year or two, a year, I think, they started filtering the reviews on audience scores, you know, to verified, not verified, and they're doing that. And ever since they started doing that, the audience scores, the audience scores have drastically risen, you know, to the point where they're trying to make movies seem as if, oh, everybody loves it, the fans love it, it's the greatest movie of the year, and they do this for every movie that comes out.
Yeah, because I wondered about that, because there was a time before Captain Marvel came out where if critics were panning a movie and the audience score was high, you could guarantee that it was actually good and the critics were just being fucking activists. Whereas now it's almost like they're trying to replicate that effect artificially using bots and whatever, so that you trust the audience more than you trust the critics.
Before you go back, it is really nice to look at this and see that James Bond didn't like the movie.
I will say this.
Name.
So Patrick Wilson is always, in my opinion, he's always been a super underrated actor. Like no one ever talks about how good he is, and he does a pretty good job of carrying when he's on screen. Momoa has a weird charm about him where, like, despite the fact he's this muscle bound, just big dude, he feels like an every guy that like you could hang out with. So that has like a certain amount of that adds a certain amount to it. The rest of the cast, for the most part, kind of is forgettable, though.
It's interesting you get that from Momoa, because every time I've watched the movie, I've never enjoyed, minus being okay with his performance in Dune. I've never watched Jason Momoa in a performance where I thought, I like this character. I can get behind this character. I can, appreciate. It's always just this sort of bland, like, diverse version of Chris Hemsworth. And I don't know. I've never been a fan.
You really be having some of the worst takes, man.
Jason, I don't
have to agree with Atreus on this shit.
The thing about Jason Momoa is just a Roman Reigns that smiles. Like, to be real.
At least
Momoa is the only reason I even like Aquaman right now. If it wasn't
that is true. He's the only reason people want Aquaman.
But you're black. You don't read real comics. Like, Aquaman has been great in the comics for years.
I mean, it was Injustice,
Injustice
1 and Aquaman 1.
Average July would like that word with you.
I would say. I for one am glad. I'll let you speak, Diabetes. Then I'll speak. Go on.
Well, I was going to say he's kind of like a Vin Diesel, but Vin Diesel's got his own problems right now.
Yeah,
not Vin Diesel. I mean, you're right.
Vin Diesel. Oh yeah.
Oh Lord.
The point I was going to make is, thank God the DCEU is finally fucking dead. We can move on to another inconsistent run of DC fuck you, and then we'll just keep on going. This is the same problem DC has had for practically 30 fucking years. It's so inconsistent, it cannot survive in its current form. It's like a zombie. It's just like,
remember that James Gunn said that The Flash was one of the best superhero movies he ever saw.
Correct. And that thing bombed.
He went back on that.
Jeremy Johns opened his Aquaman review. He literally opened his Aquaman review by going, "The Flash was better."
Yeah, I saw that.
Basically, what?
I don't agree with that. I don't agree.